Welcome to the Jan Meeuwsen Garden Show on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC. It's your opportunity to learn more about your garden and your yard, about dealing with pests, and about taking care of the birds. You can be part of the show with your questions at 395-1450. That's 395-1450. And now, from De Bruyne Seeds on Washington Avenue in Zeeland, here's the Master Gardener, Jan Meeuwsen.
And good morning, everyone. What a wonderful day we have outside. Let's thank God for the beautiful weekend He's giving us. We might get rain, or then again, we might not. But hey, a few sprinkles here and there is better than nothing, I guess. I'll take anything we can get. That is the big story for the weekend, is the drought conditions. It is really beginning to impact the landscapes around here. So you really need to take a look around your landscape for signs of stress on your plants, your trees, your shrubs, your perennials, your grass. We've seen that for a while. That has turned so kind of yellowing but look for on your shrubs and trees, look for wilting leaves. The leaves will roll up and they'll curl. And along the edges, they'll get what's called leaf scorch or browning. The leaves might turn colors, like I've got a maple that is actually turning colors and the leaves are falling. And on evergreen trees, the shoots will actually droop down when they need water. So take a look around your landscape. Take a look at the trees, everything. Take a look and just note the signs of stress and drought on your plants. Make sure that they get enough water. When you're watering a tree or whatever, you need to actually bring a hose out there and turn it on low, not dripping. It has to be on low, and make sure you don't get any runoff. Make sure it's not running too fast, that it's running down, into the gutter. That doesn't help us at all. It needs to go in the ground. And when you're doing a tree or a bush, you need to move that hose like every half an hour or so. You've got it on the west side of the tree. Now we move it to the north side of the tree for another hour, and then the east side of the tree, and then the south side of the tree. Got to remember the circulation in a plant is different than our circulation. We've got blood that goes, from your heart to your toes to your brain to your fingertips. It goes all over. In a tree or any kind of vegetation, it just goes straight up and it just feeds whatever branch that it is going to. So, the xylem and the phloem, it just goes to one particular branch. So you got to make sure that you get it all the way around. Otherwise, I had one person come in, I always water my maple tree, but this one side is just not doing very well. Well, it's because you're not watering that side. It's not, if you water just one side, it's not going to share with the other side. It doesn't do that. Trees and vegetation do not share. So make sure you go all the way around the tree or even the bush so it all gets some water. And Michigan State University has done a study, and things that are mulched can survive drought much better, like 25% better than unmulched plants. So you might want to think about putting a mulch around it. Don't put it up to the bark of the tree. 2 inches of mulch around up to the drip edge is perfect.
And is that because the mulch holds more moisture into it?
It'll hold more moisture, and it's harder to have it evaporate away. So, yes, the mulch does help. You might not like the look of it, but it does help prevent your plants from getting all that scorch and wilt. And, nothing makes you feel worse than walking outside and all of your landscape in the front is just drooping. I mean, the perennials are drooping, the bushes are drooping. Needs water, and it needs more than just sprinkler water water from the sprinklers on your lawn. It's fine for your lawn, but it's only going to go down maybe 6 inches, probably 4 inches. It's probably tops. And that's not good enough for your perennials or your trees or your bushes. Their roots go down much further. So that's why we need to take either the sprinkler on it for a long time, or just take some buckets out there, or just put the hose out there. That works. I take a couple of buckets out and do my front, my hostas and my coral bells and things like that. My bushes, I don't do as much as I do the perennials, but I do them once a week. I don't do them any more than that, and they're all doing fine at my house. Even the ones in the bright sunshine, doing fine with just a couple of buckets of water every week. That seems to be keeping them going, along with my prayers for rain this weekend. I want over my house to have this downpour. So, Arlo, can you just kind of do that for me? You're in charge of the weather, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
well,
thank you.
You'll be glad to know that tomorrow there's supposed to be, potentially thunderstorms. So hopefully it will rain around here.
Oh, right. I'm so sick of watering everything. My garden looks fine. Everything's coming up. The peppers look great. The beans are fine. The onions look fantastic. I didn't do a whole lot of things this year, but what is in the garden is looking very nice. But it's not because I'm just ignored it. My goodness sakes, got a soaker hose on it, so it just kind of stays wet, because it is in the hot sun. So yes, it's been horrible trying to catch up. If you didn't catch it right at the beginning of the drought, it's hard to play catch up right now, and honestly, rain is so much better for the plants than buckets of water. My plants look so much better when there's been a rain rather than me. Maybe it's just me. I like to think that the rain is much better than me taking water over to them. And my bird in my hanging basket has finally had her babies and left, so I can water that plant again. I'm so happy. She's not dive bombing me every time I walk out on the front porch. She got a little sick of me dumping water on her there for a while, so I just quit. So, and fortunately, the plant doesn't look any the worse for wear. So, I don't know. I took the nest out, and now we can water the plant, and it's very happy. So that Boston fern was extremely. I bet I didn't water that for 3 weeks while she was sitting on her nest and having her babies and then having them grow up. And I kept watching her come in and out. It was fascinated my cat watching that bird constantly too, of how much she had to feed those little babies. But they're all gone now. So thankfully, we're done with that for the time being. And now I've got some forks. The handle of the fork is in the ground, so just the tines of the forks are sticking up in all the little bare spots in my hanging baskets. So I think the birds will not think that there is a great amount of room for them to make a nest in without them being speared by a fork. So I'm hoping that works, because the yellowfin, the house finch and the purple finch have done their brood of kids for the year, but the yellow finch actually has their babies in August. So I might have to go through this whole thing again with a yellow finch. I don't know why they like my front. Every year they do this, and it drives me insane. So you would think I would know not to put that hanging baskets, but now I do that every year. But yeah. So we have turned the corner from spring into summer. And does that mean I can't plant anymore? No, of course it does not. I would love to take note of how many people call and do I still have time to put green beans in, or do I still have time to put, I want to put some cucumbers in, or some squash or pumpkins. And are you expecting a frost in the middle of July? I'm not quite sure why you think that you don't have enough time for this, but yes, you have plenty of time to put that in. I just put in some yellow beans. I don't know why I always do green beans every year. Without thinking, I just put in green beans. But I like yellow beans better. So this year, I already had my green beans in, but I had a little space. So I now have yellow beans too. So, and I just put those in. I put those in on Tuesday, and they were already probably about 2 inches tall. They are just flying along. I think they're going to beat the green beans that have been in the ground for a while now. So, whatever it wants to do, that's just fine. But you still have time to put in a lot of that stuff. You can do still a shorter day corn if you want. Sunflowers are fine right now. The greens, collards, Swiss chard, mustard, they love the hot weather. Love, love, love the hot weather. Your lettuce and spinach hate, hate, hate the hot weather. So if you want to think greens, let's think of collards and chard and mustard. Those will all go well right now. You could do spinach and lettuce in the fall again. Plant it in August so you can get it in the fall. Kale is another thing that likes cooler weather. It tastes much better if you plant it in the fall and eat it then. So don't think about that right now. Don't waste the space for it. Think of some of the other greens. I love collards. I think those are wonderful. I'm not a big mustard fan, but hey, some people are, and I love Swiss chard. So they're all fun greens to do. So you can get those in right now. You can get your melons in yet. And okra also loves to be out in the hot sun. So if you've ever wanted to try okra, growing it yourself, I don't know why you would want to, but you can put it in right now, and it will love you. Cowpeas are another thing that loves the hot sun. There are some things that we have that love the hot weather, and we have other things that don't like it. But there are things like the peas, lettuce, spinach, kale, garlic, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. We can all put that in a little bit later, and then we can have that in the fall again, rather than have it during the hot of July and August. And yes, folks, it is too late for asparagus roots and strawberry plants. Once we see them in the farmer's market, it is probably too late to plant it. So keep that in mind for next year. Be on the ball. Write it on your calendar. I need to get those in March, and then you're all set, and then you don't have to worry about that anymore. So yes, you still can plant some things. Some things it is a little bit of a worry, to plant it right now. And why some things will bolt. Rhubarb right now, if it gets too hot, will send up the seed thing, and so will lettuce and spinach. And once it does it, it turns really bitter, and it's not really edible anymore. So, why bother? Just pull it out and put something else in. There's so many things that you can put in right now. All right, Arlo's telling me it is time for me to stop talking for a little bit and for you to enjoy these messages. All right, we are back with the Garden Hour. Our phone lines are open, 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450 is the number to call. And I'm just, I've been worried about the landscape and my trees and my shrubs all summer long. And you kind of forget there's all these other animals around that also need water and food. So you're not remiss to put out some water if you have some wildlife in your backyard, like some foxes or possums or whatever. Honestly, keep a bird bath that's kind of low that they can get at and drink water, and it's kind of in the open so they can look for predators. It's kind of a nice thing to do. My dad built a 3-tiered bird bath. And he had a pump that circulated the water back up to the top, and the top two were for the birds. One was for bathing, one was for drinking, and the bottom little pool was for the animals. And every morning he had a fox come by and drink water. So it's kind of fun to watch that sort of stuff in your backyard. So, keep that fresh water out there, and make sure you clean your bird baths. You can cut down on the amount of time you have to clean by maintaining it every day. When you're adding new water, it's best to dump out the stagnant water first and then refill it with clean water so you don't get that buildup like, your pet's dishes with that kind of slippery buildup on the side. Put fresh water in every day. They deserve some fresh water. Put, the bird bath kind of out in the open away from the bird feeders. They really want to keep an eye out for predators going around, so keep it out there. And honestly, then you don't get falling leaves and all kinds of other stuff clogging it up. So it's best, you don't. All you have to do is dump water every time rather than all kinds of other junk. Once a week or once every couple of weeks, wash out your feeder with a brush to get that junk off the side of your bird bath. And you also get all the other spilled stuff and other stuff that's on there. Just really take a good brush and brush it all off. Rinse it out with clean running water. You can wash it out with some vinegar solution if you'd like. But you have to white vinegar, 1 part white vinegar to 10 parts water, and you can scrub it out, and that will kind of foam up, but you really have to rinse it out well after you do that. And then you refill it with nice, fresh, clear water. There are some enzymes. We've got Clean Bird Bath, I think it's the name of the product. And you just have to add a couple of drops to the water to prevent that algae and stuff from building up. And it really helps, so you don't have to wash it out that often. You just have to, when you're putting in your clean water, that's all you got to do. So that is really nice. And the birds appreciate it. It's so much fun to watch the birds sitting there playing in your bird bath, sitting there drinking at your bird bath, and they're not going to get sick. That's the nicest part. I'll tell you, by the end of the day, they have splashed out most of the water in my bird bath. So I really do have to go out there first thing in the morning to refill it. But I'll tell you, they're right there ready to grab some water. They're always happy. And I live on a lake, so I can't imagine that they can't get water. But they're always right there. They love it. They're wonderful fun to watch. I came home from work one day, and I'm thinking, what the heck is that in my bird bath? It was something big and black. And there was something hanging from the bird bath, and I'm thinking, some roadkill that some bird dropped in there, or what is it? And he got up to it, and there's a squirrel laying on his back. So he is all submerged except for his head, and his tail is coming out and going over the side. And it was like he was in a spa all of his own. I have never seen anything like that before, but it was really funny, and I guess that isn't that unusual to see them use the bird bath. I was happy that he enjoyed it. Make sure there was always plenty of water for him to enjoy the bird bath too. So I don't really have him around anymore. I think he might have been hawk dinner at one point in time. But so keep those bird baths nice and clean. You'll have a blast with a bird bath. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I mean, you can put a pie plate out on your deck filled with fresh water every morning, and the birds will love it. I used to do that in the winter when I didn't want to deal with a heated bird bath, and I just put out a fresh plate of water every morning on my deck, and the birds would come to it right away. And okay, by afternoon, a lot of times it was frozen, but they all got a drink of water first thing in the morning. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can't be more than 3 inches deep, because you don't want them to drown in it. You just want them to be able to bathe and kind of splash themselves off. It's really important for them to keep clean. and to drink. So just don't, sloping sides aren't the best thing in the world, but hey, they'll do. You might want to put some rocks in there so they can walk on them. It's fun to watch them, really fun to watch them in a bird bath. It's just as much fun to watch them by the bird bath as it is by your bird feeder. So, keep that in mind. We need to stop and listen to the news, but the Garden Show will be right back after that happens. I'm back. Okay, I'm awake. Yes, okay. We were just talking about the interior design here in the studio. It's all for our benefit, I guess. We've been talking about bathing the birds, but feeding the birds too. You could not believe how much bird feed we go through in the summertime here in Ottawa County. I cannot believe that any bird could ever be hungry here that eats seeds. It is just absolutely incredible. People come in and they'll buy 3 or 4 bags of bird feed, and they're back in the next week for 3 or 4 more. Okay, and I am one of them because I feed the birds because my cat watches the birds all day long while I'm at work. So he has something to do. But my goodness, but it's so much fun. I love watching to see what kind of birds I can get at my feeder. A lot of people are adding mealworms right now because a lot of the fruit-eating birds have gone to insects right now because they've got babies somewhere, and insects are higher protein for them, so they'll do that. But if you add mealworms in with your normal bird feed, my goodness, they just go nuts for that. It is so much fun. Or you can just put it in a whole separate feeder by itself. Just put out a plate of mealworms for them. It's fun to watch them all grab them up. Hummingbirds are like the bird that you can watch actually go through the air and does all these aerobatics that just to get insects. They've got that feeder where you put the rotting banana in that draws fruit flies, and the hummingbirds love those fruit flies. That is one fun hummingbird feeder to have up.
So hummingbirds don't just eat like nectar from flowers?
No. Their main source of food is actually insects.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So if you put up that feeder, and everybody's got a banana on their kitchen counter that's going a little south. And so if you put that out there, and the fruit fly eggs are on the skin of the fruit anyway, so you just put it out there and you'll attract fruit flies to it, and the fruit flies go in and out of this little thing, and the hummingbirds watch that and they'll dive after these little I find it amazingly fun to watch. I put out 2 hummingbird feeders once, and I put them too close to each other, and they don't play well together. They would just fight each other rather than drink any nectar. Like, this one's my feeder, don't touch it. Well, this one's mine over here. So make sure you separate your feeders by a good 12 feet at least, or even if you can make it so they can't see each other when they're on their feeders, that would be even better because they don't play well together. And if you're lucky enough, you can get mom with the littler ones behind her. That is great fun. I get those on my, every year I plant an anise hyssop, or a couple of them out behind my deck. And it's got these great big purple, not great big purple flowers, but it's got tall purple flowers on them. And the hummingbirds love those things. And it's so much fun watching mom teach little babies to come up to this thing. And it's always kind of moving in the wind. And so they've really got to be pretty good acrobats to be able to get anything. Fun to watch them. I did the anise hyssop one year because it was for my tea garden that I planted, and that was one of the plants that, oh yeah, you got to do anise hyssop for your tea. Well, I didn't really care for it in my tea, but I love watching the hummingbirds at it. I think it's kind of a pretty, really graceful, purplish type flower. So, plant if you can find some other things that hummingbirds like. I think they like they buy my mandevillas also, so they must like those, especially the red ones they like. The white ones they're not too fond of, so they go for red and purple like the butterflies do. Bees love yellow. So I plant, when I do one of my planters for the bees, I always put a bunch of really bright yellow flowers in the middle, so that kind of brings the bees in, and then they might stop and pollinate the rest of them too. But I did that this year. I found some snapdragons that are almost glow in the dark yellow, and you put them in the middle of a pot of anything else, and they are right there. So they love that color. They love yellow calendulas. They'll do marigolds. They like zinnias, especially the yellow color. They like a place that they can land on. They don't really care for the tube flowers, the bees. They'd rather do a one they can land on. And actually there are, if you've ever wondered, like on your bearded iris, there are those lines on the petals of the plant. Now, and they're pretty, but they're a darker color. There are other plants that have that also, that have lines in the middle of their petals and kind of pointing toward the center of the flower. And actually, if you could see like a bumblebee sees, and it sees an ultraviolet light, and the ultraviolet light, those lines in the middle of the petals are like landing strips, like when you land at the airport. And it like leads right to the center of the flower. It's just like, come here, this is the way in, we'll guide you in. So that's what it's meant for. Yeah, I just think that's so cool. I don't know if I'd really like to see in ultraviolet light, but that's what the bumblebees can see. So that's why they have that, and that's why the iris has that, even though the iris is not really pollinated by a bee. But hey, if it wants some pollen, this is the way right in. This is the way. Just come on in. We're doing fine. I think the plants have developed some really cool things. But yeah, if you want to, and then again, if you want to really, really catch their eye, so to speak, when they're flying by, plant in clusters. Like plants a great big cluster of yellow flowers and then a cluster of red flowers, and that will actually draw them quicker, and then they can just go from flower to flower. They can save their energy on flying, because it does take an awful lot of energy. So always remember to plant, and I know you can't do this in a wildflower planting, but if you're going to do it in your, like an English garden, or you're just doing your borders or whatever, plant a cluster of red flowers and yellow flowers and white flowers, and that will get them in there. And they like to actually go to a cluster, because then they can go to every flower in the cluster, and then they can fly back home, and that works for them better, rather than, oh, here's a cosmos, yellow cosmos, and here's, oh, way over there's another one. And so that works easier for them. Although I was looking at a friend of mine's wildflower garden that they planted this spring, and right now the yellow Cosmos Sensation are out, and the little purple Sweet Williams are pretty right in there too. So that's what's going there. We need to stop and take a break, but we will be right back with a Garden Hour right after this. And we're back. We do have some time for some quick questions, if you would like. 616 616-395-1450. My goodness, complete blank there. 616-395-1450. I'm looking for I used to have a little thing right in front of me that said the thing, and I don't have that anymore. It's way down over on the other side over there. So, okay, well, 616-395-1450 is the number to call. What's going on around DeBrian's this week? People are still planting in the garden, so yes, you still can plant in there. We have people putting in beans all the way through end of July. Every 2 weeks, it's, if you got some room, put in another thing of beans, and you get beans all the way through the summer, so that works. If you haven't yet, and she is going to tell me, I've got a phone caller. Good morning, you're on the Garden Show.
Good morning, Jan. I have a need for advice. I thought I had wild phlox these years, and I found out that I have Dame Rocket. And I read an Audubon article, looked it up, and actually my sister sent it to me. She told me I had Dame Rocket, and it says get rid of all of it. What do you know about it or think about it? It says it's invasive. It is taking over indigenous species, and our wildlife's not used to it. And so I need advice.
Yeah, it's awful hard to get rid of it. You would have to walk around and spray individual flowers, and it would be best to spray them before they turned into a flower, before they're going to have their seeds out. Have you noticed that they've become more invasive or not?
Well, I pull up a lot of them out of my garden and just leave certain, so many of them. But I have a lot of them, and they certainly, I think the Audubon site said one plant has 20,000 seeds? There's an awful lot of seeds. Yeah.
You probably have a lot of bees, so they're actually taking the pollen around, and there's probably viable seeds. Yeah. The only thing, pulling them out, as you see them, and it's easiest to do it when they're a younger plant.
Yeah, they do pull out easily when they're young.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it even said not to put it in the compost, not to send it out. I'm in Holland here, and so I can send it out with that beautiful compost container that they pick up every week.
Yeah.
But it says not to even put them in there.
No, unfortunately not. It doesn't usually get hot enough to kill those seeds, so they're still viable. So,
oh my!
So then once you're putting compost down, now you're putting down even more seeds. So yeah, it's best to put them in a plastic bag.
Wow! And here I thought, what a beautiful natural wildflower, driving along 64th Street over to Douglas from Holland, all those in the ditches, and it's not a beautiful native wildflower.
No, we have brought a lot of non-natives in, and as you see them on your property, you're going to have to pull them. And honestly, it's best to learn what they look like young, as opposed to trying to get them later on.
Do our bees? Do they use those? The Dame Rocket?
They're not a big, it's really not a flower that's got a flat surface for them to land on, really. They're not terribly fond of them, but hey, if that's what's out there and that's what's blooming, they'll go out there.
Well, that's encouraging anyway. I kept thinking, well, look at all these flowers for the bees. And then there was a mention in the Audubon article that our natural insects are not fond of them, but like you said, if the bees will go to them, I have a lot of other flowers. I think maybe I'll just eliminate a lot of my Dame Rockets.
Probably a good thing, spend an afternoon and really do an eradication program in your backyard. Yeah. Yep,
I think so. Well, thanks so much for your help, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Oh, I hope you have a good weekend. Yes. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, there's so many different flowers that have come in, and people have good intentions, and they, plant things that, they saw it when they were in Taiwan, and they thought this would be a great thing, and so they bring them back here, and they grow wonderful, and they're really invasive or whatever. So you do really have to be careful. You don't you don't just have to plant what's indigenous here, and it's awful hard to figure out what is native. What does that mean? How far back does that go? Back to the 1800s? Does it go back to the Ice Age and what was here? That's a whole different ballgame of what was here then as a native and what is here now as a native. So we just kind of have to base native on what our insects and our animals and our birds eat and use. That's going to be what's going to be best for us. So yeah, a lot of the wildflower seeds that we plant aren't necessarily from the Midwest. We were never really known as a wonderful prairie state. We were a wooded state. We had forests up here, so we didn't have a lot of prairie grass and things like that up here. So it's hard to say what's native here on a prairie grass because we really didn't have a lot of that area up here. So, we kind of do an area and what's best and what doesn't get too invasive and what our insects, etc., can use, what our native flora and fauna can use as food or whatever. So that's kind of what you base it on. There's a lot of states where black-eyed Susans are banned. I mean, I can't sell black-eyed Susans to a lot of western states. They're banned. They're a nuisance wildflower.
I was going to ask, are they invasive? They're just nuisance?
They're invasive.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I can't sell them out there because they're not supposed to grow them out there. So we have to, keep an eye on stuff like that. But what grows well here does not necessarily, it might grow so well over there that it takes over. But it's kind of like garlic mustard that takes over. And the bad part about it is, it takes up all the space, and our native plants are the plants that our bees and butterflies actually do use don't have enough room to grow. It's like the purple laetris that grows in the ditches around here. And right now, ever since Allegan County put out that warning about all of the giant or the poison hemlock, I'm noticing it as going down the road. You're noticing it in ditches. Oh my goodness, it is 6 feet tall already this year. That's all poison hemlock. That looks like a Queen Anne's lace that's really tall. That's poison hemlock. It's everywhere.
So with poison hemlock, is every part of the plant poisonous?
Every part of that plant is poisonous.
Oh, joy.
Yeah. So if you see it on your property, do take care to get rid of it. You can spray it with Roundup. You can, with gloves on, you can cut it down, brush the tip with or the what's left with some Roundup or Tordon or something like that. It's not hard, but then you got to put it in a plastic bag. And I don't know if your waste disposal will take it in a plastic bag. If they won't, then you have to bury it. So it can't, because it really, it reproduces well here. And again, it's not a native here. It was brought in the 1800s for whatever reason. I can't imagine why you'd bring in a poisonous plant, but for somebody did. So yeah, and nobody gets any good out of it except someone might get poisoned thinking it's a Queen Anne's lace. So we don't want that to happen. All right, what else? Oh, before I was telling you things that you need to get done before those tomatoes get too huge in the garden, and mine are getting huge. One of our guys, Greg, was showing pictures of his pepper plants. My gosh, his garden, I can't tell you how many pepper plants he has, but they are like 2 feet tall already, and they are big and bushy, and they look beautiful. So before your tomato plants get that tall, it's best to get the cage around them so they stand up straight so you can actually, see where you need to, trim it up, and then you can also see, where the tomatoes are, and they're up off the ground, which is invaluable later on.
This is a little off topic. Back to the poison hemlock.
Yes.
I looked it up, and apparently it was brought over from Europe because of the flowers. So either they thought it was Queen Anne's lace, or they just liked the way it looked, so they brought it from there to here because of the attractive garden flowers.
Really? Okay.
That's what Google says.
They are pretty. If you like Queen Anne's lace, these are part of that celery family that has that kind of flower on the top, or Apiaceae family, I guess it is. And it's got that pretty flower. When we were little, we used to cut them and put them in colored water, and then they would suck up the water, and you could get a purple one and a red ones and things like that. Don't do that with a poison hemlock. Don't be picking them. Don't bringing them in the house. You don't do that. There's a sap that's inside there that is poisonous, so you really don't want to get it on your skin. You certainly don't want to eat it. You don't want to be near that stuff. It's just not nice, and I want to know the name of that person that thought it was a pretty flower. My goodness. Just like the same person that brought over the Japanese knotweed. My gosh, we don't need that here either. If you have that is just horrible to try and get rid of. You can call the county extension. They might be able to help you out if you've got a huge stand of it that you really need to get rid of. And, I know it looks cute when you just plant it, and then, it looks a nice screen between you and the neighbor, and now it's taking over your backyard, and it's in your neighbor's backyard, and every time you cut it down or you spray it with Roundup, it just goes, I'll just send out another root over here and do another plant over there. It is just not nice. The time that it is at its weakest is when it flowers, and that usually happens in August. It'll send up that little candelabra flower. That is at its weakest point. You might be able to spray it with Roundup then, but it's probably better in the middle of the winter to chop it down. Take whatever, machete, whatever, just chop it all right down to the ground. So then it actually has to start up again from fresh and the new, and maybe you can keep that under control with some Roundup. That's the only thing you've got. There's no chemicals that you can get over the counter that's going to even touch that stuff. So just not nice. Don't plant it. Don't think it's really pretty. It does not have attractive flowers. I will be back here next Tuesday at 8:35 with Dan of the Garden Party. I will be back here on Tuesday, later from 10 until 11 with Gary on Talk of the Town. But I will be back here next Saturday, that's the most important part, at 11:05 or whenever the news is done with the Garden Show. I think I've got all the names right again. Yes, the most important one is next Saturday. Answer all of your questions. You can give me questions at work, and I'll talk about them here at on the show. And hopefully we'll get some rain. Arlo has kind of promised that we will have rain. So we're all going to be praying for rain. And until next Saturday, go green.
Go white.
You've been listening to the Jan Meeuwsen Garden Show on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com. If you wish to hear this or other programs hosted by the Master Gardener from De Bruyn Seeds in Zeeland, check out the podcast section of our website, WHTC.com, and listen or download for free. The Jan Meeuwsen Garden Show is a presentation of 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.